All right, how's everybody doing? Hotep. Hey, this is Michaellmhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. Today is Monday, January 7th, 2019. So I wanted to talk about this breaking news story. It's a good news story. We need some good news after watching Surviving R. Kelly. This deals with Cyntoia Brown, right? So we've heard about Cyntoia Brown. She's in prison. She killed a man that bought her for sex. She was basically a sex slave. And most recently, in December of 2018, I remember correctly, either November or December, there was an effort to push to get clemency for her from the governor, Governor Bill Haslam, in the state of Tennessee, because the governor is on his way out of office. And there was a event where the governor was speaking, and you had Black Lives Matter activists who were asking him and chanting, protesting, but they were asking him to grant clemency for Cyntoia Brown. So then we heard that he said, he was considering it. He said she was, there were a number of people that he was considering for clemency. But then a list came out just a couple of weeks ago, right towards the end of 2018. A list of names came out of people he was considering for clemency, and her name was not on that list. So then there were a number of articles written about it, and people were saying that some people were upset with him and said, oh, he's not going to do it, etc. Right? So the story broke today. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Also, African-American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network as well. Okay, so then the story broke this afternoon that, late morning, early afternoon, that Governor Bill Haslam, outgoing governor of Tennessee, has granted full clemency to Cyntoia Brown, okay? She's set to be released August 7th, 2019. All right. So the Tennessean.com has a really good article about this, because this is one of the local news sources there in Tennessee, Tennessean.com. I read articles from NBCnews.com as well. Okay. And also the Grill.com has a really good article also. And I think there's an increased focus on fighting for the rights of African-American women, especially those who have been sexually violated. We have the Me Too movement. We know Tarana Burke, who's an African-American woman, is the founder of the Me Too movement. We know it was hijacked by white women also, right? But African-American women are speaking out in the whole Me Too era as well. So Governor Bill Haslam ordered an early release for Cyntoia Brown, a Tennessee woman and alleged sex trafficking victim, serving a life sentence in prison for killing a man when she was only 16 years old. So she's 30 now. So she's basically spent half of her life in prison. Now, Governor Bill Haslam granted Brown a full commutation to parole on Monday. Brown will be eligible for release on August 7th, 15 years after she fatally shot a man in the back of the head while he was lying in bed beside her. She will stay on parole for 10 years. Okay. Now, Governor Bill Haslam, in a statement today, said, quote, Cyntoia Brown committed by her own admission a horrific crime at the age of 16, yet imposing a life sentence on a juvenile that would require her to serve at least 51 years before even being eligible for parole consideration is too harsh. especially in light of the extraordinary steps Ms. Brown has taken to rebuild her life. CNN.com, okay, end quote. CNN.com had a really good article today talking about this, but they had a segment from CNN from, I guess, about December. And this talked about a number of different things. Number one, it talked about how in the state of Tennessee, the way they handle cases where you have a juvenile that's has committed murder, things like this, how they would be treated as a juvenile as opposed to being charged as an adult. They talked about how she's rebuilt her life, how she's mentoring women in prison. She's working on her college degree. Things like this, in spite of all these odds, right? She's doing positive things also. Okay, so let me stop this right here. Okay, so in spite of all of this, you know, she's doing positive things as well. Name of the article from CNN is Cyntoia Brown is granted clemency. Cyntoia Brown is granted clemency after serving 15 years in prison for killing man who bought her for sex. After killing man who bought her for sex, all right? So let's post this article here. That was they had the story in the CNN article that started automatically. That's why I'm not, I don't like the news sources where the story starts playing. CNN is one of those. That's why I don't read a lot of articles from CNN. That's why I don't use a lot of them on my show. But we'll post a link to this article here from CNN right here for you, so you can check it out also. Okay, so if we go back to the article from the Tennessean, because a lot of times you can get better information from the local news sources also. Okay, so Governor Haslam went on to say, quote, transformation should be accompanied by hope. So I am commuting Ms. Brown's sentence subject to certain conditions, end quote. So Cyntoia Brown will be required to participate in regular counseling sessions and to perform at least 50 hours of community service, including working with at-risk youth. She also will be required to get a job, okay? Also in the story from CNN, okay, the link we posted, you have to watch the story that they have there, because they talked about how Cyntoia Brown's mother drank alcohol when she was pregnant with Cyntoia. And they talked about some of the side effects that can happen when the baby's mother drinks alcohol during the pregnancy, and how that can negatively impact the cognitive skills, negatively impact the brain of the baby also, okay? So in the story from CNN, they built a compelling case of why she should receive clemency, okay, all things considered. All right, now, in a statement released by Cyntoia Brown's attorneys, Cyntoia Brown thanked Governor Bill Haslam, quote, for your act of mercy in giving me a second chance. I will do everything I can to justify your faith in me, end quote. She went on to say, quote, with God's help, I am committed to live the rest of my life helping others, especially young people. My hope is to help other young girls avoid ending up where I have been, end quote. Now, the governor's long-awaited decision handed down during his last days in office brought a dramatic conclusion to Cyntoia Brown's plea for mercy, which burst onto the national stage as celebrities and criminal justice reform advocates discovered her case. We know there was a documentary in 2011 talking about her whole story, right? And pleading for her to be released as well. In his commutation, the governor called Cyntoia Brown's case one that, quote, appears to be a proper one for the exercise of executive clemency, okay? For the exercise of executive clemency. Quote, over her more than 14 years of incarceration, Ms. Brown has demonstrated extraordinary growth and rehabilitation. Okay, end quote, the commutation said. It was a remarkable victory for Cyntoia Brown after years of legal setbacks. Now, she was forced into prostitution and was scared for her life when she shot 43-year-old Johnny Allen in the back of the head while they were in bed together. Johnny Allen, a local real estate agent who was a white male. And a lot of people think that the fact that he was a white male that she killed in Tennessee had a lot to do with the harshness of her sentence. Okay. So now Johnny Allen, who was a local real estate agent, had picked her up at an East Nashville Sonic restaurant and taken her to his home. Cyntoia Brown, who's now 30 years old, was tried as an adult and convicted of first-degree murder in 2006. She was given a life sentence. Had Governor Bill Haslam declined to intervene, Cyntoia Brown would not have been eligible for parole until she was 69 years old. That'd be another 39 years in prison. The state parole board, which considered Cyntoia Brown's case in late 2018, gave the governor a split recommendation, with some recommending early release and some recommending she stay in prison. Now, attorneys for Cyntoia Brown applauded the governor's decision. The lead attorney on her case said, quote, "This is truly a joyful moment for Cyntoia and for all of us who have worked to help her." And that's from Charles Bone and J. Houston Gordon, okay, who are lead attorneys on her case. The governor's decision is proof that our justice system works, and it marks the beginning of a new chapter for Cyntoia. Now, in recent years, celebrities have highlighted Cyntoia Brown's case, fueling intense interest and a renewed legal fight to get her out of prison. Activists, lawmakers, and celebrities, including Rihanna and Kim Kardashian West, have cited Cyntoia Brown's case as an illustration of a broken justice system. Now, Cyntoia was a victim herself, they said, and did not deserve her punishment. Her impending release sets the stage for her to join their ranks. Now, during her time in prison, Cyntoia Brown completed her GED and got a college degree from Lipscomb University. Her allies say she hopes to apply her education by supporting social justice issues through her own nonprofit organization. All right. And then they have a chronology of her story going back to 2004, okay, as well. So that's the article from the Tennessean, Tennessean.com. NBC News had a really good article dealing with this, as well as thegrio.com. All right. And the one from the Grio is entitled "Cyntoia Brown Case, Tennessee Governor Grants Clemency for Woman Convicted of Murdering Man Who Bought Her for Sex When She Was 16." Okay. And yes, because she was forced into prostitution. All right. She was forced into prostitution. Now her pimp's name was Cutthroat. Okay. And they talk about that. I think it's in this article here. That they talk about it. So in 2011, the PBS documentary "Me Facing Life: Cyntoia's Story" detailed the atrocities that Cyntoia Brown suffered. A man named Cutthroat, K-U-T, a man named Cutthroat said to be her pimp, allegedly forced her into prostitution, and she was regularly raped, choked, beaten, and drugged. Now, Cyntoia Brown's case drew attention from celebrities, including Gabrielle Union as well. And they began advocating for mercy using the hashtag #FreeCyntoiaBrown. So if we go back and just look back at a little bit of this history here. Okay, so when we look at her case, Cyntoia Brown was just 16 years old and the victim of a child sex trafficking, when she was charged in 2004 with the killing of 43-year-old Johnny Allen. The courts had ruled defendants like Cyntoia Brown, who are convicted of first-degree murder committed after July 1st, 1995, and sentenced to life imprisonment, cannot be eligible for release from prison before serving more than 5 decades. Okay, that's crazy. This is one of the reasons why we need like real criminal justice reform. So just last month, December 2018, in a unanimous decision, the court's 5 justices ruled that despite Brown's age at the time, her sentence was constitutional. The ruling came in response to a lawsuit in which Cyntoia Brown argued her sentence was unconstitutional, citing a 2012 opinion by the U.S. Supreme Court that said mandatory life sentences without parole for juvenile offenders violate the U.S. Constitution. Okay. All right, so check out this article as well from thegrio.com. And NBC News had a good article as well. Cyntoia Brown granted clemency by Tennessee Governor. Governor Bill Haslam granted Brown a full commutation to parole. She'll be eligible for release August 7th on time served and will remain on parole for 10 years. We'll come to some of your comments here in just a minute. Just stand by here. Okay. All right, so yeah, she was tried as an adult. As I said, okay, so I'm still trying to figure out, I know there were some conditions that have to be met before she can be released. I'm still trying to find out exactly what are those conditions. Because as far as I'm concerned, she should be released tomorrow. I know paperwork has to be processed, things like this. But as far as I'm concerned, she should be released tomorrow, if not today. Now, Cyntoia Brown said she feared for her life and shot Johnny Allen, 43, while in bed with him because she believed he was reaching for a gun. Prosecutors argued that the motive was robbery, okay? And this is the one who bought her. She was involved in child sex trafficking. She was a child sex slave and he bought her, all right? Now, so Brown, who's now 30, was tried as an adult in 2006 and imprisoned in Tennessee following her trial and life sentence for the death of Johnny Mitchell Allen, who paid Brown for sex. She was also convicted of aggravated robbery as well, all right? So she argued, they were in bed, she argued she thought he was reaching for a gun, so she killed him. Prosecutors argued the motive was robbery. Cyntoia Brown's supporters and attorney have argued her sentence was too extreme, given her age and circumstances. At the time, Cyntoia Brown had run away from home and was living with a 24-year-old boyfriend, a pimp known as Cutthroat, who Cyntoia Brown said raped her and forced her into prostitution, according to court documents. Now, I don't remember. I saw some of the documentary in 2011. I don't remember her whole background, childhood, why she ran away from home. I don't remember that. But when we look at Cyntoia Brown's situation and we look at R. Kelly and the women who are alleging that they were sex slaves, they were brutalized, etc. One thing we see is that hurt people, because we know R. Kelly was sexually molested from the ages of 7 to about 12 or 13. In a 2012 interview with Teray, he talked about that, and they showed that in the documentary Surviving R. Kelly. And we also know his younger brother was sexually molested as well. Okay, Bruce. I think his name is Bruce. And I was watching a interview with his younger brother late last night on YouTube, and he was detailing the sexual molestation. It was actually by their older sister, Teresa. Okay. So when we look at this, and then we look at Cyntoia Brown running away from home, we see that a lot of these things are able to manifest, or they're put into bad situations, I should say, when we have breakdowns in the home and we have problems in the home. I don't know if it was a lack of a father in the home or what, but I know something's not right when children are running away from home. Okay. So I think we have to do a better job of healthy African American male-female relationships, because that's the foundation. We have to have healthier African American male-female relationships, so that when we do have children, they're not growing up in chaos, so that they feel that they have to run away from home, or possibly seek the love in an older man that they did not get from their father. Because see, it's another thing, it's another dynamic when you have young girls 15, 16, 17 years old, and they're with a man 30, 40 years old, 50 years old. I'm not sure how old R. Kelly is now, but he's damn near 50. But so am I, but I don't look it, but that's another story. Okay, I'm not with 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old girls, okay? So there's a whole nother thing. There's nothing like that. All right, but what we also see is that when you have girls who don't have healthy relationships with their father, they'll try to seek that type of symbolic relationship with another man. And they're vulnerable to do things sexually, to be coerced into doing things sexually, to get that type of love from him that they didn't get from their father. And they usually seek that in an older man. Okay. And when you have somebody who has been sexually molested, like R. Kelly was, now with Cutthroat the Pimp, I don't know his background. I don't know whether he was sexually molested or not. If he was, it would not surprise me, because that's part of the cycle. Okay. And pimps, and this gets into a whole, see, the other thing is, this gets into a whole nother thing, because I'm working on editing the video from the show I did last night, the African History Network show. And I talked about how Chance the Rapper, who's in the documentary, Chance the Rapper was interviewed in 2018 by Jamel Lemieux. And it was a never before, this clip is never, the interview has never been seen before, and this clip has never been seen before. But Chance the Rapper, who I do like, I think he's a good guy, he does a lot of good work in Chicago. He said, number one, he apologized for the song he did with R. Kelly back in 2015. Secondly, among other things he said in the interview, but he said that, I'm going to give you the exact quote. He said that maybe I didn't care because I didn't value the accuser's stories because they were Black women. He's talking about the accusers of R. Kelly. This interview is from 2018, mid 2018. Okay. And HelloBeautiful.com has an article, okay, about this, entitled, and we talked about it on my show Sunday night, the African History Network show. He has an article, HelloBeautiful.com has an article entitled Chance the Rapper on R. Kelly's Alleged Victims. I didn't value their stories because they were black women. I didn't value their stories because they were black women. In an exclusive interview for Cassius, the Grammy-winning rapper apologized for working with the Pied Piper in the past and why he did it. Okay. And in the article, it says, Rolling Stone magazine had previously reported that Chance the Rapper simply said, quote, I didn't value the accuser's stories because they were black women, end quote. However, Chance clapped back on Saturday night saying the quote was taken out of context because it did not take into account everything he had said before that in the interview. In a note he shared on social media, the 25-year-old explained his controversial quote. He said, quote, the quote was taken out of context. The truth is, any of us who ever ignored the R. Kelly stories or ever believed he was being set up, attacked by the system, as black men often are, were doing so at the detriment of black women and girls. I apologize to all of his survivors for working with him and for taking this long to speak out, end quote. He went on to say, let's see here. Let me back up here. Okay, so in the interview, he said, quote, we're programmed to really be hypersensitive to black male oppression. It's just prevalent in all media. And when you see N-words or brothers getting beat up by the police, it's men, end quote. Okay. He goes on to say, that's a scene you see. Slavery for a lot of people, they envision men in chains, he said. He went on to say, quote, but black women are exponentially a higher oppressed and violated group of people just in comparison to the whole world. Maybe I didn't care because I didn't value the accuser's stories because they were black women, end quote. So when we see men being sexual predators on women, as alleged in the R. Kelly case, and then we see the pimp cutthroat, the alleged pimp cutthroat, raping her, forcing into child sex, things like this, right? Then we really see that these are cycles that have to be broken because hurt people and they destroy people's lives. The other thing is that sexual molestation in the African American community is largely tied to the legacy of slavery. Now, some people may say, well, chattel slavery ended 153 years ago. How does that have anything to do with it? The reason why is because African Americans during slavery, were routinely raped, sexually molested, girls, boys, men, and women. And when slavery ended, we never got counseling. We never got therapy. Okay. And those things can happen generation after generation. Hurt people. And we've all heard stories. It may happen in your family where you have an uncle that molested the children, a girl or a boy. The aunt may have been molesting the girls or the boy. And this is this is a secret oftentimes in the family. And people may not find out that the molestation took place to 15, 20 years ago, or to until after somebody dies or something like that. It's like a dark secret. I saw one study that talked about how about 60% of African American women surveyed said that they had been either molested or raped by the age of 18. Okay, 60%. Yeah, here it is right here. Let's pull this up. And then in the documentary Hidden Colors 4 from director Tariq Nasheed, it's called The Religion of White Supremacy. I did a screening of it in Detroit when it came out. It was an authorized screening. I paid for the screening fee, paid to read for the screening fee. And okay, let me pull up this article. And what happened was in that documentary, there's a segment where they talk about molestation in the African American community and the ties between molestation being passed on generation after generation in our community and it tying back to slavery. And when I showed that segment, first of all, it was a packed house. I did it at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe in Detroit when she was on Woodward. It was a packed house, okay? But when it got to that part, there were a few sisters who had to get up and leave out because they said it was too emotional for them. So there's a real problem with the degradation and dehumanization of African American women. It happens to boys too. Boys are molested as well, but it happens more with women. It happens more with girls. It happens more with women. And because African American women are the most devalued women in society, okay? Oftentimes they're not looked at as needed to be protected as other races of girls are looked at as needed to be protected. Okay, so this article is from 2011, December 8th, 2011. TheRoot.com, 60% of Black females abused before age 18. A new study conducted by researchers at Black Women's Blueprint claims that 60% of African American women have been sexually assaulted by a Black man before turning 18. Okay, and a lot of this, just the article aside, a lot of the sexual molestation happens African American. It happens within the race. Okay, it's intraracial. A lot of it happens within the race because most likely that person who's the perpetrator, they were molested. It never got the psychological help, never got the therapy for it. Because also the other thing is in the African American community, there's a shame when it comes to having to seek counseling, having to go see a psychologist, having to go see a therapist. And a lot of that is a legacy of slavery. The reason why is because during slavery, there were medical experiments done upon enslaved Africans, like Dr. J. Marion Sims, who's known as the father of modern gynecology, who performed surgeries, horrific surgeries on African American women without anesthesia. And these were enslaved African American women he was performing surgeries on. Okay, so because of various reasons, but a lot of it has to do with the medical experiments done on African Americans during slavery, the way we were treated, and then also after slavery ended, us not getting any type of psychological counseling, any type of help, and being adverse to white people, especially when it comes to science and medicine, because of what they were doing to us afterwards as well, not just the Tuskegee experiment. Because people ain't, I mean, the Tuskegee experiment of untreated syphilis on a Negro male, which was instituted by the U.S. Department of Health, that went on for 40 years. Okay, so people largely didn't know about the experiment nationwide until after it was exposed. It gets shut down about 1973, and it's exposed in the media, okay? But there are other experiments that were taking place. For instance, in World War II, there was the mustard gas experiment that was done to Black men to determine the effects of mustard gas, okay? And these were African American men who were soldiers, who were in the military. They were in the army, and they were exposed to mustard gas. And National Public Radio had a big article about this. NPR.org there's a big story about this. YourBlackWorld.net had one also. And the survivors, some of the brothers who are still alive today, they still suffer from the side effects of this mustard gas experiment. And their skin peels, okay, it peels off. And they showed this one brother, okay, I forgot, he's 70, 80, something like that. I forgot exactly how old he is, maybe 90s. And he has jars of his peeled off skin in it, okay? But this was an experiment. So there's a whole history of African Americans being used for different types of medical experiments during slavery and after slavery. Then you have the whole eugenics movement, which was created by Sir Francis Galton in 1883. And eugenics means good genes. And eugenics was designed to weed out those who are more likely to be criminal-minded and feeble-minded, things like this. Now, eugenics targeted poor whites and poor African Americans. But over time, it's going to focus on African Americans. And there were about 30 state-sponsored eugenics programs in the U.S. that did sterilization, that did forced sterilization of African Americans and whites, okay? Men and women, but the majority of them were women. And over time, they're going to shift towards focusing on doing forced sterilizations of African American women. Okay, so there's a whole history here about this. The documentary Maafa 21 deals with this, but there's stuff outside of Maafa 21, because Maafa 21 is put out by a right-wing pro-life group called Life Dynamics. The director's name is Mark Crutcher. I know because I talked to him twice back in 2010. I was working on setting up an interview with him. Okay, let me see here if I can find this. Let me try to pull up this article from npr.org. Okay. Yeah, secret World War II chemical experiments tested troops by race. June 22nd, 2015. June 22nd, 2015. Secret World War II chemical experiments tested troops by race. Okay. And they show this young brother in here. His name is Rollins Edwards. He was a young soldier in 1945. They show him. He was a victim of this mustard gas experiment, okay? And in the article, it says, as a young U.S. Army soldier during World War II, Rollins Edwards knew better than to refuse an assignment. When officers led him and a dozen others into a wooden gas chamber and locked the door, he did not complain. None of them did. Then a mixture of mustard gas and a similar agent called lewisite was piped inside. Rollins Edwards, who in 2015, when this article was written, was 93 years old. He said, quote, "It felt like you were on fire. Guys started screaming and hollering and trying to break out. And then some of the guys fainted. And finally, they opened the door and let us out. And the guys they were in bad shape," end quote. Now, Rollins Edwards was one of 60,000 enlisted men enrolled in a once secret government program, formally declassified in 1993. 1993 is the year of the Freedom of Information Act also. Formally declassified in 1993 to test mustard gas and other chemical agents on American troops. But there was a specific reason why he was chosen. It's because he was African American. Rollins Edwards says, "They said we were being tested to see what effect these gases would have on black skins," end quote. A National Public Radio NPR investigation has found evidence that Rollins Edwards' experience was not unique. While the Pentagon admitted decades ago that it used American troops as test subjects in experiments with mustard gas, until now, officials have never spoken about the tests that grouped subjects by race. Okay, so read this article here. This is a story that broke back in 2015. All right, and then if we look at the article from theroot.com, okay, dealing with sexual abuse among Black females. 60% of Black females abused before age 18. And it says the study, which surveyed only 300 women, is part of an ongoing research by the group Black Women's Blueprint, which hopes to survey 700 by March of 2012. To claim that 60% of Black women are sexually abused with such a small sample size is a bit premature, but another organization, Black Women's Health Imperative, did a similar study with a larger sample of about 1,800 women two years ago, and found that 37% of African American women were sexually abused before the age of 18. Farah Tanis, the co-founder of Black Women's Blueprint, said that the problem continues to be ignored in our community and is getting worse. Quote, there is an increase and we need to stop neglecting that issue, end quote. It would, okay, so, and BET has an article about this as well. All right, so this is from theroot.com. But it's interesting that the day after, well, the Monday after the R. Kelly trilogy airs, 3 Nights of Surviving R. Kelly airs, we get this news. All right. How's everybody doing? All right, African American business owners, we're coming to your comments here in just a second. African American business owners can post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. To find out how you can advertise with the African History Network on the audio podcast of our radio show, the African History Network Show. This is our 9th year on the air. We take your 30-second and 60-second commercial, audio commercial that you send us, or we can record one for you. No additional charge. We put into the audio podcast on 6 different podcast platforms. Each episode reaches thousands of listeners. We're on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, Castbox, Acast, FM Player, and TuneIn. Okay, so email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Current promotion. Your first month, you get 50% off. Second month is free. Okay, we have that running for a couple more days. Then also, if you like this type of information, share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Michaellmhotep, Imhotep on YouTube. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. Be sure to turn on the notifications on both of those pages so you'll be notified when we go live. And also, you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show, or at africanhistorynetwork.com. If you don't have a PayPal account, that helps us to keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. Also, the sale of the DVD lectures we have and our digital downloads of my lectures at our website, African History Network, that helps us to finance this, be able to do the research to broadcast the African History Network show, do the broadcast throughout the week, pay the bills, stay on the air, keep doing the research, all right? Okay, let's go to some of your comments here. But most importantly, we have to understand that we have to protect African-American women. And what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay, so when we've been stripped of our history and culture, and when we're being attacked by media and music, especially music, negative corporate control, hip hop, and videos that dehumanize our women, degrade them, call them all type of despicable names, B's and hoes, H's, and thoughts and things like this. Other ethnic groups don't tolerate things like this. Other races do not tolerate that from their art, from their music. Okay, and when that's being bombarded to you and you internalize it, right, then you reflect the program. You reflect the program. And African American women, to a certain extent, dehumanize men, call us N-words, things like this. But when you sit back and you watch an hour of hip hop videos, the objectification is a sexual objectification usually of African American women. Negative hip hop videos. There's some conscious hip hop, so this is not a wholesale condemnation of hip hop. And I'm 47 years old. I have seen the origins of hip hop. I've seen hip hop come into existence. And then I saw how corporate controlled hip hop was taken over by corporate conglomerates, and especially the early 90s. Okay. The early 90s, we really see that shift take place. We see it brewing in the late 80s, and we see NWA come out. But NWA was largely, I think, manipulated also. They had a real message to tell, but they were largely manipulated. So then you're going to have, and before that, going back to about 86, you have Ice-T with Gangsta Rap, who was Ice-T was like the original gangster rapper. However, you still had other positive hip hop that was on the radio that had recording contracts. But you're going to see a shift as their contracts expire. Groups break up, things like this. They're not being replaced with other positive acts. Okay, and you see the rise in the quote unquote gangster rap. You see the proliferation of guns in the music videos, of proliferation of the misogynistic language, of the violence in the music and in the videos. And this is all programming. Whatever is disseminated becomes imitated. Whatever is disseminated becomes imitated. So this is all programming. All right. Okay. KT Washington said the videos ties into trauma mindset. Yeah. And what the videos do, the videos are even worse than the music, because the videos give a vivid image in your mind that plays in your mind oftentimes when you hear the song. Okay. The videos dramatize it more. Who else we have here? Kathleen. It's also documented with the American Association of Psychology. It's old fact, 60% by age 18. Machona, I think the knowledge you possess must also be taught in Africa. Most of us don't have an idea until we come this side. Now, where are you located, Machona? Which country are you in? I have much to learn from you when I'm in the U.S., she said. Machona said. How are you, brother? All right. You doing all right? Patrice said, not the most demoted. We Native American Indians have it really rough. No one cares because we simply still don't count as people. Experiments are still being performed. Yeah, that's true. Native Americans. That's true. And there's a relationship between African Americans and Native Americans. People should read the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep. People should read this book also, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep. Because he talks about the Khoisan who came to this land from Southern Africa. They came to this land at least 51,700 years ago. And we're dealing with a legacy of slavery, 246 years of slavery. After that, Jim Crow segregation, white domestic terrorism. But Native Americans suffered from it as well. Okay? Those who we call Native Americans suffered from it as well. All right? There's also a study from Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault, African American women and sexual assault. They have a fact sheet. We know Maryland was one of the big states where slavery took place. That's where Baltimore is. Okay? And we know J. Marion Sims lived in Maryland. the state of Maryland, who's known as the father of modern gynecology. They just recently took down a statue of J. Marion Sims because African American women were protesting. Women from Black Youth Project 100 were protesting because that statue was there in Baltimore, if I remember correctly. It's Baltimore. African American girls and women 12 years old and older experienced higher rates of rape and sexual assault than white, Asian, and Latina girls and women from 2005 to 2010. 40 to 60% of Black women report being subjected to coercive sexual contact by age 18. 4 in 10 Black women have been subjected to intimate partner violence in their lifetimes. 4 in 10 Black women have been subjected to intimate partner violence in their lifetimes. 40% of Black women confirmed sex trafficking survivors in the U.S. 40% of confirmed sex trafficking survivors in the U.S. are African American. Stereotypes regarding African American women's sexuality, including terms like Black Jezebel, promiscuous, and exotic, perpetuate the notion that African American women are willing participants in their own victimization. However, these myths only serve to demean, obstruct appropriate legal remedies, and minimize the seriousness of sexual violence perpetuated against African American women. So, and this is something that I talked about dealing with R. Kelly. This is a legacy from slavery, the dehumanization of African American women, the hypersexualization of them. Okay, you had the belief that a Black woman couldn't be raped. You had this belief during slavery, even after slavery. You had this belief that Black women could not be raped. They were perceived to be hypersexual. So when you see in the music videos the hypersexualization of African American women, because here's the thing: if you go watch Fuse TV, you go watch music videos on Fuse TV or MTV, watch like the top 40 videos. So you see all these white pop videos, things like this. They don't, in the majority of those videos, they don't have the women in there half naked. Okay, they're not in there shaking their behinds. It's not a focus on their body parts so much. Okay, because when I go do that, I see a lot of these top 40 videos from white artists. Majority of them, they're focused on love, relationships, marriage. Okay, love, relationships, marriage. If you go watch some of these videos, especially like on Fuse TV, you like watch some of the top 40 videos, and then you go watch an hour of BET hits. I think it's BET Jams or BET Hits, where they show like the current hip hop videos. You think you're on a different planet. Because in their videos, you don't see stacks of money and money falling from the sky, things like this. And then the other thing that you'll notice in our videos is that you'll see a proliferation of tattoos as well. You'll see them some in their videos, but it's like to an extreme in our videos. Okay, so when you start watching it too, you start seeing different messages being sent. Now with R&B, R&B is more likely to promote love, relationships, and marriage. But even some of the R&B is garbage. But R&B is more likely to promote love, relationships, and marriage. Messages of that. All right. Yeah, you had sex breeding farms that took place during slavery also. Lance said, yes, I was just getting ready to say there's a connection to the Native Americans and African Americans. I have not read the book you stated. Can you provide the title again? Yeah, it's The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep, no relation to me. He's a friend of mine. I've interviewed him about 11 times. His new book is coming out, and he said late February because he just emailed me a couple of days ago. Because this book is out of print. You may be able to find it at your local African-American book dealer, but it's out of print. Okay, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Okay, by Dr. David Imhotep. All right. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can listen to the audio podcast we have there of our shows also. And wherever you get your podcasts from, search for the African History Network show. All right. And then also you can, we have the online courses that I teach. They're all on demand. They're in a 10-course online bundle pack. So they're on sale right now. Regularly $130 is on sale right now. We have a 48-hour sale going on. It's on sale $40, regularly $130. That's running until Tuesday, January 8th, 11:59 p.m. All right. They're all on demand. Watch at your own pace. Watch from around the world. It includes understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, which is a 14-hour, 7-session online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history. I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation. We have video clips, book references like this. This is one of the books we use, one of the books I reference in the online course. And then the other courses as well. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization is one of the other ones also. So that 10-course online bundle pack right now is on sale $40. All right. Okay. Lynn said, thanks. I'll try to get the book. All right. Look, hey, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.